Okay, yeah, I'm making this YouTube video to explain this Feast of Trumpets rapture that people keep thinking about. Okay, and let me explain why Feast of Trumpets has nothing to do with the rapture. Okay, now I'm getting ready to read you a lot of information. Okay, and I'm going to put the links in the description box so you can read the articles yourself. Okay, I'm just going to give a brief overview. Okay, on the topic because it's an in-depth study. Okay, and I'm going to give you the link. You want to read the 4 and 5 pages per topic, you can do it. But I'm just going to give you the meat and potatoes of the things I found. Okay, because Feast of Trumpets, they say you do 100 shofar blasts, and the last trump is when the rapture happens. Okay, that's what commonly people think. Okay, I got to thinking, how do you know it's supposed to be 100 shofar blasts? Okay, where is it? Who said it? Where was it established? Why is it? I ask these questions. Okay, I'm just not going to take somebody's word for it that you blow 100 shofar blasts on Feast of Trumpets. But why? Okay, what's the purpose behind it? All right, and I'll explain why in a second. Okay, why do we blow 100 shofar blasts on Rosh Hashanah or Feast of Trumpets? All right. There are different customs. Different customs. Okay? Customs are doctrines of men. Okay? Customs are doctrine of men. Alright? They're not biblical. They're customs. There are different customs as to how many times the shofar is blown on Rosh Hashanah. In most communities, the shofar is blown 100 times. Here's how we arrive at that number. Now listen to their explanation on why they blow it 100 times. I'm going to my notes. The Torah tells us to blow a teruah. I can't pronounce these Hebraic words, so I apologize if I butcher them, but I don't know how to pronounce them. I'm going to have to pronounce them the best way I can, okay? The Torah tells us to blow the tekiah from a shofar on Rosh Hashanah. A tekiah is a broken sounding blast which resembles a cry. This commandment is repeated in 3 different places. 1, the Talmud understands this repetition to imply that we must hear 3 tashuas. The Talmud also derives from other scriptural verses that each tekiah must have a simple unbroken blast called a tekiah before and after it. Thus, the Torah requires us to blow 9 blasts as follows. Now get that. What I read from you right there is from the Torah. Okay? What is the Torah? The Torah are the 5 books of Moses. Okay? So that is biblical. Okay, we agree with that, right? The Torah is the 5 books of Moses, okay, which is biblical. And it says in the very end of this little paragraph I read, thus the Torah requires, key in on that, requires us to blow 9 blasts. So biblically speaking, only 9 blasts of the shofar are required by the 5 books of Moses. Are we clear? Now, the problem is that the word tekiah can have multiple meanings. The Talmud tells us, remember, the Talmud, not the Torah, the Talmud tells us, is what they're saying. Not the Torah. I want to make that distinction, okay? They're reading one part from the book of Moses, the Torah, and they're one part from the Talmud. Okay? The Talmud is not biblical. The 5 books of Moses are biblical. The Talmud tells us that there are 3 possibilities. It can mean several extremely short blasts, similar on how one would articulate in a tragic situation. Or it can mean 3 somewhat longer blasts, similar to how one would mourn when he has great worries. Third possibility is that the Talmud, the Torah mentions is both of these cries together. A moan followed by a oralatayan. Today, the moan-like sound is known as shivarimin, and the ungulation as tekiah, to make sure that we cover all bases. So to make sure that we cover all bases, we blow all different possibilities. The Torah doesn't say, the 5 books of Moses doesn't say cover all possibilities. It says this is what you do and this is how you do it. Okay? This is what you do and this is how you do it. Alright? But it says to make sure we cover all bases. We blow all the different possibilities. Teruahs with a tekiah before and after each one in the following order. And it lists all the orders. I'm not going to read all the orders. Okay? By blowing these 30 blasts, we fulfill our scriptural obligations. Okay? They fulfill their scriptural obligations according to the Talmud, not the 5 books of Moses. I want to make that clear. So by blowing these 30 blasts, so we went from 9, now we're up to 30. Okay? But blowing the 9 blasts is what the Torah says do. That Talmud says 30 blasts to cover all possibilities. Okay? By blowing these 30 blasts, we fulfill our scriptural obligation according to the Talmud. Okay? To understand the reason for the next 60 blasts, okay, so now they're bumping it again, 60 blasts, we need a little background information about the Moshef Amun of Rosh Hashanah. The Talmud tells us that God says to us on Rosh Hashanah, say before me vows whose themes are sovereignty, remembrance, and shofar. Sovereignty, so that you should crown me king over you. Remembrance, so that I should remember you for good. And with what? With a shofar. Note, blowing these 30 blasts is the way they fulfill our scriptural obligation of what the Talmud, not the Torah, says do. I'm just going to make that a point. I'm making it clear. I'm trying to beat it home to you. Okay? And I found this on the title, and I'm going to give the link in there so you can read the story. This comes from, all these websites are from Jewish websites. Okay? A tale of 2 Talmuds. Okay? You have a Jerusalem Talmud and you have a Babylonian Talmud. Okay? If I understand it correctly, I'm going to read through it. When people speak of they are usually referring to the Talmud Babylonian, or the Babylonian Talmud, comprised in Babylon, modern-day Iraq. However, there is also another version of the Talmud, the Talmud Yerushalayim, the Jerusalem Talmud, compiled in what is now northern Israel. The Yerushalmiel, also called the Palestinian Talmud, or the Talmud Azeri Israel. I can't even pronounce these. Sorry about these guys. I can't pronounce these words. The Talmud of the land of Israel is shorter than the Babylonian, and has traditionally been considered the less authoritative of the two Talmuds. Basically, after I butchered the names, the Babylonian Talmud is shorter than the Palestinian Talmud, or the Jewish Talmud. Now let me point something out. The Talmuds, okay, because it says two Talmuds. You have a Talmud from Babylon and you have a Talmud from Palestine. But the Talmud is not the Torah. Okay, can I make that clear? That a Talmud is not the Torah. Okay? The 5 books of Moses. That's just giving you a little background on the shofar blasts, on why they do them. Okay, because the different Talmuds tell them different things. But the whole point of this video is to explain why Rosh Hashanah has nothing to do with a rapture. Alright, now we're going to get to the meat and potatoes parts of the video now. I'm going to leave the link. Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment for all mankind. Again, Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment for all mankind. On this day, man is judged for all his actions, and all that will transpire and occur during the coming year is recorded. Okay? The Talmud, Rosh Hashanah 8a, derives this from the verse Deuteronomy 11:12 that states, "The eyes of God, your Lord, are upon it, the land, from the beginning of the year until the end of the year," i.e., from Rosh Hashanah. The world is judged as to what will transpire throughout the year. Note, since Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment, and that the world is judged during this time, could it be that this is when the tribulation could or might start? Which I agree and I believe it is. Okay, that's that since Rosh Hashanah thing, that's my own take on it. Because it says judgment of all mankind. What happens in the tribulation? The judgment of the world begins. Okay? Can we understand that? The judgment. Rosh Hashanah is the day of judgment for all mankind. Okay? It's not a celebration. It's not a rapture. They're not going to get raptured on that day. That's when judgment begins to be poured out on that day. Okay? You can find the verse in Deuteronomy 11:12, King James Bible. Okay? And it's also known as Rosh Hashanah, the day of remembrance. Okay? Rosh Hashanah has many names, one of which is the day of remembrance. On one level, the day of remembrance calls attention to the heavenly judgment which takes place on that day. But it also alludes to the vision God had for mankind. Before man was even created, and before Adam and Eve had ever sinned. And so we remember on this holiday that in the vision of God, that in the vision God has for us, His plan for all mankind is never forgotten. Note, this is me, note, since Rosh Hashanah is known as a day of remembrance, and when heavenly judgment takes place, could it be when we're at the judgment seat of Christ? See what I'm saying? Rosh Hashanah is a day of judgment and a day of remembrance. Okay? So my understanding is tribulation is going to break out on all mankind, and in heaven it's like a pass and review where Elohim or Yeshua judges the ones up in heaven. Okay? So since we're being judged in heaven, we all have to stand before the judgment seat, right, of Christ, the Bema Seat judgment. So the Bema Seat judgment probably happens on a Rosh Hashanah Feast of Trumpets. Okay, that's what happens. It happens on the Feast of Trumpets at Rosh Hashanah. Okay, it's right there in the article. Okay, you're going to read the link yourself, hopefully. Okay, so I mean, I can't make it no more clear than that. I mean, it says what it says: a day of judgment and a day of remembrance. Day of judgment is tribulation. Day of remembrance, Bema Seat judgment. Okay? That's when he reviews all the heavenly bodies up in heaven. A day of remembrance. Now, I also want to point out a note, too. Alright? Remember in the book of Job, where it says that the sons of God came before him, or something along those lines, and Satan came too? And he said, where are you going? And I think to and fro in the earth, walking up and down in it, or on it. Something along those lines. You know the story of Job, right? I think that day came on the Feast of Trumpets. Because what happens on the Feast of Trumpets? All the heavenly hosts come and appear before Elohim and Yeshua, or Yeshua, to be judged. Okay? And he said it twice in the book of Job. Because the first time he came up, okay, took out all his land, his crops, and everything like that. Okay, then the next time he came up, okay, then he touched Job and gave him sores and boils and all kinds of stuff happened to him. All right, but it only happened on Rosh Hashanah. Okay, Yeshua, Father Yahweh Elohim, only comes on Moeds. He does everything in patterns. He comes in Moeds. All right, and also remember the scripture. I don't have it written right down real quick, but you'll know the verse I'm talking about where it says, blindness have came until the fullness of the Gentiles comes. Okay? The Jewish people, if I'm not mistaken, are looking for their Messiah on a Feast of Trumpets. That's the false, okay, time. They're looking for a false Messiah. They're looking for him on a Rosh Hashanah, Feast of Trumpets. Okay? And notice, in those things I was reading, it doesn't say we have to look at the crescent moon. It doesn't say we observe the moon and go out and verify it. It doesn't say anything like that. The articles I read doesn't give you any background on how it's calculated, where it's calculated, because to me that's irrelevant. It has nothing to do with the rapture. It's judgment begins. Okay, it's judgment on earth and judgment in heaven is what it is. All right? See? 2 Corinthians 5:10, King James. For we all must appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body according to that he had done, whether good or bad. So, to me, Rosh Hashanah is when you do the tribulation begins and the Bema Seat judgment takes place. Could the rapture happen on the Feast of Trumpets? Possibly. Okay, possibly. I'm saying 50-50 chance, possibly. The only reason I'm even putting it on there is 50-50 chance is because judgment and the Bema Seat judgment takes place on that day. So, theoretically speaking, because I don't know, the rapture could happen, and then as soon as the rapture happens, judgment begins. It could happen like boom, it can go... You know what I'm saying? Rapture happens, we go up, and then as soon as we go up, judgment comes down. It can happen the exact same day. Okay? That's what could happen. I don't know. But I'm just saying that it's a judgment of earth and in heaven. It's not a rapture per se event. Okay, it's not a rapture per se. It has nothing to do with the rapture. It's judgment. Everything is about Rosh Hashanah is judgment. It's not nothing to do with rapture. Okay, the rapture is, and for maybe some people didn't know it, but they blow the shofar on Passover as well. Okay? They blow the shofar on Passover. Okay, that's why I'm saying it's probably a Passover rapture, because the Passover is blown, okay, and it's blown, I think, 3 sets. Let me go back down and read it. I'll go down and go into it now. This is why I'm saying it's a Passover rapture. Okay? Shofar during Passover Sacrifice. At Pesach is slaughter in 3 groups. The first group enter and fill the Azariah, the temple courtyard. They lock the doors, blow the shofar 3 times. The first group leaves, the second group enter, then they blow it again, and they repeat it to the 3rd time. So remember, it says the last trump for the dead in Christ will rise. Okay, the last trump to me is the last group of the 3 groups that go into the courtyard and blow the shofar. It's the last group, the 3rd group, on the last of the trumpet sound. So it's going to be a tekiah on the 3rd group. Okay, that's what I'm understanding it as. Shofar during Passover Sacrifice. I'm going to look and see if I can find a link so I can put it in the description box. Okay? Now I want to point out something also too. Isaiah 26, 20 through 21, King James Version. Isaiah 26, 20 through 21, King James Version. Isaiah 26, 20 through 21, King James Version. Now see, this sounds similar to what happens on the Passover when they go into the temple courtyard 3 times. Come, my people, enter into thy chambers, and shut the doors about thee. Hide thyself, as it were, for a little moment, until the indignation be overpast. For behold, the Lord cometh out of his place to punish the inhabitants of the earth for their iniquities. The earth also shall disclose her blood, and shall no more cover her slain. Close the door. So to me, I see a mirror image of when they go in to the courtyard on Passover to blow with the 3 separate groups that go in. They're shutting the door. The shutting the door you see in Passover is the same shutting the door that says, "Come into thy chambers." To me, that's what it said. That's what it makes sense to me. I don't know about you, but that's what I'm getting out of it. So to summarize, based on all the information I've enclosed, I think the Feast of Trumpet or Rosh Hashanah is when tribulation begins. Okay? And that's when we'll be before the judgment seat of Christ. It's going to be on the Feast of Trumpets. Okay? People often say that no man knows the day or the hour. To say that when the rapture should happen. And you get that from Matthew 24:36. But of that day or hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels in heaven, but my Father only. Which they take it out of context. They didn't read the verse above it. Now, they think that verse is talking about the timing of the rapture, but they don't read the verses above it. When you read it in context, it's talking about when heaven and earth passes away. Not when the rapture happens. It has nothing to do with the rapture. But that's the verse they love to quote. Everybody loves to quote, "Of that day and hour knoweth no man," but they don't read the verse above it. They're taking it out of context. Okay? Matthew 24:35 through 36. Now, this is the proper context. Matthew 24:35 through 36. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. You see, it's not rapture, it's heaven and earth passing away. Because Yeshua don't know when he's going to destroy the earth, and it's probably going to be after the 1,000-year Great White Throne Judgment, probably. Okay, but heaven and earth shall pass away, but words shall not pass away. But that day and hour knoweth no man. Okay, so I'm just trying to clarify all this misguided stuff about, and I think the rapture will happen at Passover on the last trump, like I alluded to. Okay, the third group that goes in, the last of the three trumpet sounds, that the key on the third group is when it's not no 100 blasts of a shofar. Okay, because the shofar blasts are based on the 5 books of Moses, not some Talmud. Okay, because the Talmud is a doctrine of men. Okay, well, I gave you the background on the Feast of Trumpets and why it's not the rapture. I hope you took the time to actually watch the full video. Like I said, I'm going to put links in the description box below so you can go and look it up and read it yourself. But like I said, when you click on it, the link is probably like about a 5 or 7 page article, okay, that you have to read. And it's all going to be a little small fine print like that, okay? And I just didn't honestly want to read all that information. I just took out the parts I was looking for and copied and pasted them in my notes, and I told you my notes. All right? Well, y'all have a good night.